All right. I take it we are live. Just right. I take it see the reason for the mega delay, people, is that I'm simultaneously going live from YouTube, so I haven't really done that before. And I was trying to set this up and it was a nightmare. God damn. Anyway, almost gave up, people. Almost gave up. But lillahi alhamd, I didn't. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Running Layth, bienvenidos a todos, Bakher, Ragale, Khushamadid people, and Swagatam. Right, so, all right, people, those of you just tuning in from YouTube, marhaban, special marhaban to all of you. This is one of my first lives from YouTube. I have disabled the comments. The reason being is because it's difficult for me to focus on multiple platforms, people. I may be capable, but not that capable. आप लोग मुझे कुछ ज्यादा ही credit दे देते हैं, you know. No, I'm just messing. It's so you can, any questions you want to share, why don't you share them via Facebook? So that way I know who's commenting as well. Aha, you see, there's method to my madness, people. There's method to this. Warna, people think, he's just, this guy's just, is he just a loser? In the words of Mir, Taqi Mir, the legend, the Urdu don and poet, who's called the god, he's referred to as the god of Urdu. He says in one of his, he says, "Phirte hain mir khar, koi poochta hi nahi." That Mir, he seems to just be wandering around like a loser. Koi poochta hi nahi. Nobody even bothers to ask him that how are you doing? How are things? Mirte phirte hain mir khar, koi poochta hi nahi. इस आशिकी में इज्जत सादात भी गई. The Indian subcontinent, they have a big thing about being Sayyid. So Sayyids are sometimes given a totally separate platform. Not that I necessarily agree with that, but I'm just saying that they are. So with the Indo-Pak culture, you will see there's this huge platform given to Sayyids. And so he's saying, Mir Taqi Mir, that he's a Sayyid, that in this pursuit of love, even his dignity as a Sayyid has gone. Nobody seems to care about him anymore. It's like, फिरते हैं मीर खार कोई पूछता ही नहीं, इस आशिकी में इज्जत सादात भी गई. So, Wasim G, ahlan wa sahlan, you're doing it. Those of you on YouTube, whilst you've tuned in, subscribe. And you can thumbs up, and you can also post questions on Facebook. Yasir Kasana, tonight what we'll be talking about, amidst looking at your questions, I'll be looking at your questions as well. Don't worry. Hang in there, people. Hang in there. Right. So, in addition to your questions, we'll be looking at some things of a review on my dialogue with Abdullah Gondal. I'll be going over my thoughts, sharing my scattered thoughts on that. Also, Yasir Qadi has done an interview recently for which he's had some slack. Chalo, is par bhi nazar maar lete. Since since we've got nothing better to do in life, in everything, just like just forcefully putting ourselves in every place we don't belong. So why not have an opinion on that as well? Since nobody else is asking me, I might as well just give my opinion. There's a great scholar of hadith of the Muslim past, goes by he's known as Abu Dawood at-Tayalisi. So there's a famous Abu Dawood. So those of you that can see this red and black book over there, this is that just an excuse to go? This book over. So this red and black book over there, people, that you can see, that's Abu Dawood, but I'm not talking about that Abu Dawood. That Abu Dawood is like a Pakistani Abu Dawood. He was, because he's from Sijistan, which is probably in modern day Pakistan. He's what people know when you hear the word Abu Dawood, you think of him. But there's somebody senior to him who's a slightly earlier Abu Dawood. He's a famous Abu Dawood muhaddith, epic muhaddith of his age as well. Also had the name Sulaiman. So his name is Sulaiman, and that Abu Dawood's name is Sulaiman. But he's known as Abu Dawood at-Tayalisi, people. And this one is a Sijistani. Okay, so you can remember him as al-Pakistani, and that one is Tayalisi. Now, Abu Dawood at-Tayalisi, he speaks of, in his day and age, he says he's complaining. He says, "Yaar, meri koi value hi nahi hai, yaar." Like, nobody seems to really care about anything. He describes himself. He says, "I'm in Basra and I've got 11,000 narrations from a particular rare source, and nobody's even asking me." He says, "Yaar, I'm a legend." Koi puchta hi nahi hai, yaar. Nobody's noticing that I'm a legend. Then he goes to Asbahan. He travels to Asbahan, which is in close to the modern day city of Shiraz, and it's in modern day Iran anyway. So he travels to Asbahan, people. In Asbahan, he says, this is Abu Dawood at-Tayalisi. Abu Mu'adh is in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan. Right, so he says, when I was in Asbahan, nobody there was asking me either, but I just, without being asked, he says, min ghayri an us'al, without being asked, yuhi, I transmitted 41,000 hadith. He says, min ghayri an us'al, like nobody had asked me, but I transmitted it. Yellow. 41,000 hadith, like that. Like, so the question is, he was feeling undervalued, right? So in some ways, chalo, relating to Mir Saab, Mir Taki Mir, he's saying that he's feeling undervalued. Is ashiki mein izzat-e saadat bhi gayi. That even this respect of being a Sayyid has gone in this pursuit of love. Low, people, low. So Saleh, all the way from Turkey. There was somebody earlier on who sent a message from Pakistan. Shukran. I did read your message, but I was in between trying to... Frobbery says, could it have been more than 41,000? Exactly. But non-stop. Essay, you, like this. And nobody's even batting an eyelid. Yeah, identify with Abu Dawood. The guy is going through a struggle, yeah. He's struggling. And then I ask you, is it a coincidence that Abu Dawood then transmits the hadith that the Dajjal will come from Asbahan? I ask you, in all honesty, is that a coincidence? Nutty. You see, obviously, he was getting disrespected by the people of Asbahan. So perhaps either they misunderstood him, or maybe through false memories, or it came out in that way that he said, oh, the Dajjal is going to come from Asbahan. Legends, huh? Chalta hai yaar, chalta hai. So Robin says, du'as for my dad, a car accident. Inna lillahi wa inna. May Allah grant him a swift and complete recovery. Ameen, ameen. And all other people who are suffering out there. Saleh, ahlan wa sahlan. Hina, Tariq, ahlan wa sahlan. Junaid. Right, those of you just tuning in, people, you can click like. You know what? The art of giving. Let me teach you something about the art of giving. Nowadays, people are so tight-fisted. You know, when it comes to, I see some angry faces. Yaar, ye angry faces. Ye dukhi atma kahe ko bhatak rahi hai yahan pe. Admin, can you send this dukhi atma back to the barzakh where it belongs? Just to make sure the admin ain't asleep. How can it be? All right, so let me put her on there. Un momento. Right, so now, so that's the that's what's going on. So let's take some of your questions, people. Billy's in the house. Billy, you're doing it. Henna G is saying she will counteract it. Shukran. Right, so with hearts. Inhi baaton pe to Mufti fida hai. This is the thing that all you people, your support, your kind words, your love, your generosity. Yaar, kahan is like hum? Shall I start acting super humble? You know, when you get some of these guys, they're like some of these Maulanas. So when they want to introduce themselves, they act all super humble. So they say faqir, you know, the most like the most impoverished, the faqir, the haqir, the most despised, the ahkar, the most despicable. And you're thinking, what on earth is this guy doing? What's this? Yeah, fetish kya hai, yaar? What's this self-humiliation? I don't quite get it. So, right, people, what are we looking at? Thank God there isn't a middle finger. Aane do, yaar, aane do. You know, if people want to, if they want to hurl a middle finger, no hay problema, ninguna problema. It's all good. Chalta hai. Right, so what's going on, people? What is bothering the awesome people? Mi gente, my people, my Facebook and social media family, what is bothering you? Can you answer my questions already posted? Hez, Riz, Shazia, ahlan wa sahlan. Right, so on Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, what do I think about Sheikh Hamza Yusuf? Okay, this is a question. What do I feel about Sheikh Hamza Yusuf being appointed his newly administrative post for the government, or the Secretary of State on religion and things like this? I think, look, fair play. I think that I would rather have somebody like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf advising. I would definitely have somebody like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf advising the administration, Trump's administration, or whoever, the American administration, than somebody else. And I don't know why people, you know, look, what it is. Let me tell you something, folks. People will never be happy. There's no pleasing people. You understand? Go with your heart. Wherever your heart leads you, go. Obviously guided by reason, the voice of reason, right? Otherwise, people, it's so go with wherever your heart wherever your heart goes, right? So nevertheless, let's get back to this thing of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. I feel that he should take up the post. I don't agree with this hating on him. I think Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is epic. He's a legend. You understand? And we've got to. It doesn't mean we have to agree with him in everything. I don't feel that. You see, in my personal opinion, I might as well give my opinion. I don't feel that. You see, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is he's like an icon for Islam in the West. He is like one of the founding fathers of the Islamic Renaissance in the West. He will always have that maqam. Right. So I think. So that's my kind of love for him. That said, I don't think Sheikh Hamza Yusuf deals with that many Muslim issues. So that's my kind of critique of Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. But that's the same critique towards most Muslim figureheads, scholarly figureheads, is they don't deal with the real issues on the ground because they're all afraid of the backlash. Obviously, I look at the backlash I get. Can you imagine what they would get? So you can name all these scholars, whether it's going to be Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, Imam Zaid Shakir. I mean, these are people who I deeply love. It's other people today. I want to give later on my review on the interview of Yasir Qadi, but even Yasir Qadi, Sheikh Yasir Qadi, Ustad Noman Ali Khan, whoever, like these are Americans I'm mentioning there. These are like really incredibly popular people, but you named them. I'm trying to think of other popular names. Omar Suleiman. I suppose he doesn't get that involved in knowledge. But all these great kind of Shuyukh and Muftiyan or the UK, you're going to get these scholars. None of them are really dealing with issues on the ground because they don't have the answers, or they feel if they come up with answers, they're going to be too radical. And therefore, either they don't feel comfortable in presenting those answers, or they feel that if they do say those answers, their own groups will disown them. So what can you say? They don't really deal with much. But that said, I think many of them are legends in their own way. And I definitely, people like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, I have the utmost ihtiram and respect. Okay. So, right. Okay. Right, I will do a little later on as well. Some people have been asking about the Mufti Masala for tonight. The Mufti Masala tonight segment will be on. I'd like to speak a little bit about this Bukhari gate and some thoughts on. I've been sent by a lot of people, Sheikh Yaqoubi, Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqoubi's new Sahih al-Bukhari and the claims. So many people have sent me this, and people have said, "Can you speak?" Ab kya kare? Janta ki demand hai, janta ka demand. So what can I do? People, I stuck. I don't want to rock the boat, but the boat is rocking. So what to do? So I'll be coming back to Sheikh Yaqoubi's Bukhari claim a little later on. Okay, yahan ho kya raha hai? It's like sometimes you take a look at something and you're like, acha. What drama is going on here? So that's a bit later on. So there's a lot going on in this world of mine. What are some? Let's take a few questions. Somebody said, "Don't say anything bad about the Sheikh." Yusuf Siddiq said, "Oh, no." Listen, on this Monday Nights with Mufti, there's no loyalty to anyone. Nobody is safe. My loyalty is to Allah and His Messenger. Bas, and the voice of reason. Anything beyond that is not safe. So on this, anybody at any point could go down. Trust no one. There is no trust here. It's in the words of John Ilya Sahab, मैंने कब कहा कि मोहब्बत में है नजात? When did I say that you'll find salvation in love? मैंने ये कब कहा कि वफादार ही रहो? When did I ask you to remain loyal to me? I never asked for your loyalty. Or in the words of another epic poet, okay, वफा की उम्मीद जिन्हें होगी उन्हें होगी. That the pursuit of loyalty, whosoever is seeking it may be seeking it. There are people, but whosoever, उम्मीद जिन्हें होगी उन्हें होगी. Whosoever is seeking, that's them. हमें तो देखना है तू बेवफा कहां तक है. I'm just interested in seeing how long you can remain disloyal. So that's the driving force behind Monday Nights with Mufti. Let's take some questions, people. Let's take some questions. The YouTube is in HD. You're doing it, people. You're doing it. All right. Because some people genuinely believe that the devil gives me insinuations and helps me remember knowledge. And they feel that part of my pact with I'm not making this up now. They actually believe that part of my pact with the devil is I have to do these devil signs. So just to pay my dues, just in case Iblis says to me, hey, come on, what's up? I'm doing my part of the deal here. Why ain't you holding up your end of the bargain? So I got to there you go. To my homie demons out there, right? Hang in there, stay strong. All right, so, right, let's take a look at some of the questions. Was Allama Iqbal Qadiani? No, he wasn't. He wasn't Qadiani. Although some people have said maybe his background was like that. I don't, maybe his background, but he himself was a Sunni Muslim. Right, okay. Are you from Small Heath? I'm not from Small Heath in Birmingham, but not too far. Close to the rock, close to the rock. Why do you respond to, what's this? How do you respond to the infinite regression argument? Oof, kabhi hamare salam ka jawab bhi diya karo. Who is this? Shabir Gohar Sahib. Wa alaikum assalam. Janab, आप कहें तो ये सब बंद करके आप पर ही तवज्जो दे देते हैं. Of course, हम आप ही के लिए तो बैठे हुए हैं यहाँ पे. The rest of the people are all they're just extras. It's really all about you. So what's somebody asked a question about infinite regress. How do we respond to infinite regress? I mean, infinite regress generally isn't accepted by, it doesn't make absolute philosophical sense. Infinite regress means, or what they call in Arabic, tasalsul. It's the fact that, well, basically, if I say, it could be anything, but I know they're referring it to God here, that, well, everything has to have had a beginning, so therefore it must be God. And then they're going to say, well, who made God? Well, then if somebody made God, then And the whole point is it can't keep going back as in a cyclic kind of motion. There must have been some point where it all began. I adhere to that. It's not about, I think most people recognize that infinite regress isn't logical. It isn't too logical. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I feel that it's not rationally there. Like it's not overwhelmingly supported. In fact, it's argued against from a rational perspective. That's the general thing. Right. So what else? What are some interesting questions? What are some right. So let me take a look at what's going on. Somebody just messaged me that it's actually Abu Muaz, my own friend, doing the angry faces. Yaar, ye siyasat kya hai? Nav, what politics are you doing here? What game are you playing? Right, so what's going on, people? Peace. I have a question. If you have free will, how come Allah in the Quran has destroyed previous civilizations? Right, so people start thinking that I'm the spokesperson on behalf of God. They start asking me to answer on behalf of God. Up, jawab de dun? Shall I give the answers or? No, look, we've got to understand certain things. This will tie into, Riddy's in the house. Ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. We've got to understand something, that in the Quran, I explained this as well in my discussion with Abdullah Gondal, and I want to speak more about that discussion shortly. But this point that in the Quran, we have something which I refer to as narratological truths. Okay, so what do I mean by narratological truths? Yeah, I need you to understand what I'm saying. This is my term, narratological. Vah, narratological. Right, so what I mean by that is that the narrative carries off, correlates with reality. The narrative from a holistic perspective. Narrative is the content of something, it could be a story or an event or things like this, but it's not all of it has to be literal. Not all of it has to be metaphorical. So some people could say, well, is this literal? And is this metaphorical? Because you have literal truths, you have metaphorical truths, you have symbolic truths, but what about an amalgamation, a collection of all of these? That is what I refer to as a narratological truth. So the Quran contains truths which are narratological truths. So there may be in some events description. So if you take a story of a prophet, for example, there may be some aspects of that story that are metaphorical. There may be certain aspects of that story that are literal. And there may be some aspects that are symbolic. There may be certain aspects that are allegorical. There may be, so it's a concoction, okay? It's something that's put together of everything, a kind of a composite. It's not just black and white. It's dynamic. It's 4K, ultra 4K, people. That's what I refer to as narratological truths. So some parts of the story may be allegorical, some parts may be. So when you look at Adam alayhi salam's story, the part about the angels bowing to him and things like this, in my understanding, is an allegory. That part isn't real. Although Adam, I believe, is real. You see, so this is what I mean. So it's like if I was referring to, imagine I was speaking about an individual. So I was speaking about, I could take a figure, let's just say let's say we're speaking about Einstein, and then I said, oh, he was amazing, and he lived in this time, and he came up with his theory um, of general relativity, or before that, special relativity. And then I said, oh, he was a giant amongst men. Now that part is a metaphor. Okay, that part isn't true, but it doesn't mean the person was a metaphor. The person did exist. Or I may refer to certain things about, like if I said Einstein was changing the world. Now, when I say he was changing the world, I don't think he thought in his lifetime what he's doing is changing the world. I'm obviously ascribing to him this agency, which he didn't actually have, but as time unfolded, history played out in that way. It's as though he changed the world, because he kind of did in many ways with his understanding of physics and things like this. But he wasn't, when he was doing it, he wasn't actually changing the world. So I feel that this is an example. I'm trying to make you understand that when we as human beings speak about people, we do this all the time, especially amazing people. So why would the Quran be any different? It is a living scripture that is inherently, intrinsically dynamic, because it's trying to mirror the dynamism of human beings. Okay, so that was my point as well with Abdullah Gondal. So coming back to this thing about, look, nations being destroyed and things like this, you have to remember when the Quran is trying to explain these things, it's some parts are summarized so briefly that it's not that black and white, but it's just trying to get the gist across to you. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Right, so let's take a look at what else is. Oh, damn. Oh, right, I did away with the comments there. How would you advise a person to approach study religion? Okay, I'll come to that. Opinions on Imam Ahmad Raza Khan, Yusuf Siddiq is asking. Ahmad Raza Khan, Maulana Brilvi Sahib, he's a scholar, unquestionably a scholar of great influence from the Indian subcontinent. I'm sure the maqam he's managed to achieve in the hearts of many people, which he has unquestionably, demonstrates that he must have been an incredible man. He must have been, because it's not easy, whether we agree with him or disagree with him, but it's not easy to pull it off, which he did. Some people sometimes mock him, or they say he's, oh, he was clumsy, or he was silly or stupid, or things like this. And you'll get certain books that have anecdotes of him, like there's a famous anecdote where he's looking for his glasses and it's on his head and he can't find them, and they're trying to portray him as a dumb, clumsy kind of man. But in all honesty, for him to have pulled off what he pulled off, for him to have gained the sway in the hearts of the millions of people that highly revere him, surely he must have been an incredible, charismatic, charming, and intelligent, very intelligent personality. I don't personally question that. I think he must have, by necessity, had those qualities. That's what I feel. That said, I don't understand the obsession with him. I don't understand why people are obsessed with Ahmad Raza Khan Brilvi Sahab. He lived, he did his efforts, he wrote his books, and sure, I mean, by all means, he should be, and whoever wants to take inspiration from him should. That's why he wrote his books. He never just, he wrote them so people read them. That's unquestionable. There's nothing wrong. In fact, that's a right thing that he did, and people who want to take inspiration should. But inspiration is one thing, but making him the end target of everything, he becomes the obsession. So I see people, modern day scholars, arguing that the earth, that the solar system is geocentric. Why is the solar system geocentric? That the sun revolves around the earth in 2019, people. 2019. They're arguing this. Why? Because Ahmad Raza Khan Saab wrote a book about what's it called? Fawze Mubin as Harkate Zameen or something like this. Or Dar Harkat Zameen, regarding the Harkat, the movement of the earth. So he's got a book where he feels that the earth isn't revolving, the sun is revolving. Now, with all due respect, Ahmad Raza Khan Saab was not a leading physicist. Okay, he was not an astronomic kind of like expert or a scientist. He was a person who did what he could for his day and age. I'm sure in the late 1800s, during the British Raj, things like debating whether whether the solar system is geocentric or not could have been a debate. But today in 2019, it's absurd and stupid to be debating these things. You are just a dinosaur. You are an embarrassment to be debating these things. And today I see Muslim scholars arguing. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, arguing for the sake of this geocentrism just because Ahmad Raza Khan Saab wrote it. I mean, talk about blind following. That's like, I mean, why are you taking his word on science? I can understand if you took his word in fiqh, like here's a fatwa, shall we wipe a portion of the head, shall we wipe a whole part of the head? And they're saying, well, he interpreted this verse of the Quran. Fine, I mean, he's a scholar of Islam, and you take his understanding. But why are you taking his theories on the solar system and the cosmos, or on quantum physics, or on... He wouldn't know these kind of things, or even if he knew them, he would lack in knowledge. It wasn't... We are in 2019. It's a blessing we know these things. So move on, people, move on. Right. What's this? But the Quran in its pure textual form is not codified law. That's Sharia. British law is written and structured. Metaphors. Right. He didn't... How he just gave examples of literal and... Right, okay. Assalamu alaikum. There's a lot of questions moving back and forth. Right, this thing about the Sharia. What is the Sharia, by the way? Abu Unaysa has asked an interesting question. I'll come to that. Ayub has asked, I think Imam Ahmad Rida Khan is seen as the opposition of colonialism. He's not. With all due respect, Ahmad Raza Khan Brailwi Sahib I feel was in his own right a great scholar of Islam in his own right. Obviously I wouldn't agree or follow his opinions because I think they're obviously outdated. They were for his day and age, which is the 19th century, not the 21st century. But I do feel he was a great scholar of Islam. He by no means, it would be wrong to assume that he was at the vanguard or the forefront of fighting colonialism. He wasn't. If anything, he didn't issue a single fatwa against the British, as far as I'm aware. In fact, one of the criticisms hurled against him by Deobandis and by Ahl Hadith is that he was born and died under the British Raj, yet he never issued a single ruling against the British. So this has been one of the criticisms. He by no means was the voice of resistance. That's not what he was. But I'm not picking on him. I'm just saying that would be a total lie to say that. That's like saying, that's just totally misrepresenting history. Okay, so leave him to what he was, and don't put him into other categories. So it's like saying Einstein was a great physicist, but if I start saying tomorrow Einstein was the voice of the civil rights movement and he was at the forefront, he was the symbol of civil rights. but he wasn't necessarily. I'm not saying he wasn't for these things, but he wasn't the symbol of civil rights. And so let's not misplace people. Let's just keep it to facts. Right. So the Sharia, I wanted to ask, there's a lot of questions coming back, forth. I'm going to keep checking for some interesting questions. If they come from YouTube, I'll say here, right. Sorry, just right. So this thing about the Sharia, look, most Muslims do not know what the Sharia is. We have unnecessarily made the Sharia into something which it was never meant to be. The Sharia was not, in my understanding. Okay, let's explain what the Sharia was first, then we'll explain what it's not. The Sharia was a social remedy to the problems that the people were facing, that Muslims were facing in the Prophet's lifetime. So if let's say there's an issue, the Prophet would advise, he would give rulings, verses of the Quran would be revealed, they would address issues. That's what the Sharia was. It was a social remedy to the problems in real time. That's what it was. So as the problems would change, so would the Sharia. That's the understanding that especially the Maliki Madhab, the school of Medina, and many ulama adhered to, and amongst them is me. Right, so what the Sharia is not. The Sharia was never meant to be a holy, a kind of sacred concept to be worshipped. The deification of ahkam, this is what I call the deification of ahkam. It's to turn the rulings into God. That is a cataclysmic error on the part of Muslims, of some Muslims. The rulings were never meant to be a God. We don't worship the rulings. And this is a problem. So to many people today, Islam without the rulings can't exist because they feel there's nothing left to do. Like if I'm not being told off or being forced to do something, then there's no point in me believing in God. And that is, to me, and the greatest ironic absurdity. You see, you have placed the rulings, the Sharia, as a separate God. You have made these ahkam, ittakhadtumuha ilahan ghayr Allah. So this is, I am very much against this. And I would say to people that, as I would remind them of the khutbah that Abu Bakr radiallahu an is narrated to have given when the Prophet had passed, when he said, those man kana ya'budu Muhammadan, he said, whosoever used to worship Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then let him know that he has died. And I would say, whosoever worships ahkam, then let them know that innaha satataghayyar, that they will continue to change. And as Abu Bakr radiallahu anh said, and whosoever is worshipping God, فَإِنَّهُ حَيْ لَا يَمُوتْ, he is alive and does not die. And the same thing, Allah is alive and he is constant. The ahkam are not constant. So I would advise people to come away from the worshipping of rulings of the Sharia. The Sharia, if you want to call the Sharia sacred, it is so by association. I can accept that the Sharia is sacred by association, meaning that it's associated with God and with these things, and it's got a kind of like this sanctified air to it. I honor that, I respect that I can accept. But in and of itself, it is not wholly like that. It was just a solution for the day and age. So if you look at many of the rulings given in the Quran, for example, they were never introduced by Islam. Islam never introduced these rulings. It simply just gave the rulings that the Arabs were already doing, but it just placed parameters on them. There was nothing. So if you take a look at the verse about which I spoke about last week about blood money, if somebody accidentally killed someone or if there's manslaughter and the compensation, and the Quran says fadiyatun musallamatun ila ahliha, that you give a compensation, the blood money, which is in the hadith, in the Muwatta, and in other books, for fi nafsin mu'mina or fil nafsil mu'mina mi'atun min al-ibil, 100 camels. Now this 100 camels, where did it come from? I know the Prophet said it in the hadith, but where did it come from? The Arabs were already doing this. It was from the pagan times. It was from, arguably, from either from the Prophet's grandfather, from his time. Some people have argued that does it begin with Abdul Muttalib? Does it begin with, some people have even said maybe Hashim. Some people have said other people, other famous Arabs had introduced it, and it wasn't. The point is, this ruling already existed. It wasn't something Islam introduced. And that's important. But this troubles some people because they feel, oh, if we start saying things like that, then I lose all value for Islam. But then the problem lies within you, my friend. Not with God. The problem lies with you. You have a problem. You have the same problem that many of the, in some ways, the people of Mecca had in the time of the Prophet. They acknowledged Allah, but they felt Allah was too transcendent and they needed something else, something more tangible to attach themselves to. And today, many, unfortunately, Muslims have taken that quasi kind of being to be the rulings, the Sharia. They feel that that is that without which Islam can't stand. There is no point having a God if he doesn't tell me off. Ek do thappad na lage, so what's the point? I need at least a slap or two. That's the whole the legendary line of John Ilya Sahib, where he says, Ilaj to ye hai ke majboor kar diya jaun. That the solution is that I'm compelled and forced. That's the solution. Varna यूं ही तो किसी की नहीं सुनी मैंने. He says, otherwise I've never listened to anyone. So if you want, so the solution is that you force me. So that's the right. So let's take a look at some other questions, people. Shall we take some from Facebook? Take some from Facebook. ماذا تقولون؟ ماذا تقولون؟ Oh, better not touch that. Better not touch that. Volatile world. Touched it and the phone moved. Yeah. What is this sorcery? What is this sorcery? Right. So, Safain Mahmoud says, again, Allah created me. Again, He created you? Yeah. What kind of a relationship is this that you've got going with God? He keeps creating you. You're like, I just about got out of that one and then He created me again. You're like, yaar, game kya chal rahi? What's this game? Again, Allah created me. I didn't tell Him to create me. Then how can He punish me? Even if I told Him to create me, I don't remember telling Him to create me. Perhaps you told Him, but then you suffered from amnesia. Possible. If He hadn't created me, then I wouldn't have done any sins. What if He hasn't created you and you simply are in the imagination of somebody else? You're simply an extra in the dream of somebody else. Imagine that, your whole life summed up as just an extra. Yeah, I was just an extra. I was just walking around in the background. There wouldn't be anything about punishment. If he punishes me, then he is a dictator. He doesn't have any right to punish me. He created me, so he has to take responsibility. I didn't tell him to create me. Wow. Yeah, there's like a lover's tiff going on here. I'm not. I didn't tell you to do this. Yeah. We need to. Where is the love? Where is the love? There's the. What's the. Humko sanam ne khar kiya. Humko sanam ne khar kiya. That sanam, and there's a play on words here because sanam in Urdu means like my love, my darling, like that. But it also comes from the word to mean idol, statue. Humko sanam ne khar kiya. That it was my love that she ruined me, he says. Or is he saying the statue ruined me? Humko sanam ne khar kiya. Varna khuda acha hi tha. Otherwise, God was actually quite good. That's an epic, honestly. What a line by John Elia. That humko sanam ne khar kiya, varna khuda acha hi tha. Otherwise, I was much better off with God. Why did I trust this statue, this goddess? That's what the poet is saying. Why did I trust this goddess? I was better off with God. But yeah, so this I forgot the name of the where's our tortured soul? Un momento, espérame, mi gente. One moment. Has he gone off? Safain is the name of the tortured soul. Dukhi atma, bhatak rahi hai yaar. It's this soul, is troubled soul in our midst. Right, well, why did God create him, huh? Yarkuch, can somebody... Like, what are you guys... Can somebody go and find out, please? The brother is struggling. Do something. Find out, for God's sake. Why did God create him? Safain, hang in there, yaar. Hang in there. There's got to be some reason. I'm finding out for you. Don't worry, man. Everybody, this journey, everybody's on it. Everybody's on this journey. And who says God has to punish you? Who says he has to punish you? It's not. God says, I treat people as they expect of me. Why are you thinking so lowly of God? Why don't you think of him in an amazing way? Why don't you think of him as Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim? These words that you often repeat. Why do you think of him as somebody vengeful and hateful and spiteful and angry and bitter and just because the Salafis draw that picture of him sometimes doesn't mean he's like that. So I would say that, look, it doesn't mean God is going to destroy you and burn you. And we have to stop living in this guilt, people. This guilt is destroying many lives, honestly. It's destroying many lives. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ. Allah says, what is Allah to get out of punishing you? I'm not saying that. Quran is saying that. Yes, there are many verses in the Quran about things like the imagery of the afterlife, scary, intimidating. Who says these things have to be literal? Can they not be symbolic? Can they not? Is Allah incapable of them being symbolic? Why? No, of course not. When Allah speaks of himself, what's greater than the afterlife is God himself. When he speaks of himself, he speaks in symbolic terms. He says, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. This is symbolism, and the example of his light is like a lamp that's here and this, and it glows, and this is symbolism. He's speaking of himself symbolically, Allah is. So what is فَمَا بَالُكَ بِالْآخِرَةِ? What is the akhirah then? Why can't he speak of that symbolically? All we do know is this is not the end of everything. What is there to come? We don't know. Ultimately, we know that this is not the end, and we believe in Allah. And the imagery in the Quran, you can take it literally if you want. I mean, I don't believe it's literal. So this thing about punishing and all this scary, was that just not the rubric that was needed for that day and age? That discourse, is that not how people would have been brought under, that because they were so wild, they needed certain deterrents to motivate them. Abu Unaysa asks, why are there so few scholars like Imam Burzuli who were in favor of changing the hudud? Yeah, that's a good question. Look, people who question things will always be a minority. Yeah, this is why I'm in the minority. People who question things will always be in the minority. It's Imam Shafi'i, great scholar. Yeah, I'm praising him. Why is it when I praise somebody, aap log dar jate ho yaar? You guys start to think I'm gonna somehow diss him. It's not like my character to do anything like that, is it? Where's husn al-dhann? Right? So, right, inna ba'd al-dhanni itham, people. So, look, Imam Shafi'i, a great scholar. He was a great scholar. He was a great scholar. But he has this statement of his where he says, I never debated an alim except he beat me. And I never debated a jahil, except I beat him. And I never debated a jahil except he beat me. And people say, subhanallah. But I thought, wait a minute. That's equally just saying anybody who beat you must be a jahil. He must be ignorant. See, but people never saw this statement like that. They saw it the other way. They just saw it as, oh, mashallah, mashallah. So people who question things will always be in the minority. Yeah. Nobody understands me. This is Plato's dilemma of the philosopher king. That the king ought to be the philosopher, but then because he's a minority, the majority can never relate to him. And they will always rebel. And this is the kind of the irony in Plato's Republic, you see, because the elite ought to lead the most intelligent, but then the common people can't relate to the intelligent person. So the common mob will be like, rebel. So this is Plato's, I summarized it for you guys. Plato's Republic. I summarized it. So this is part of the struggle of this world, people. Yeah, let's take some other questions. What else is going on? So people like Imam Burzuli, who said, let's change the hudud. Other people did as well. A lot of people did follow up on Imam Burzuli's view. A lot of Malikis. From the Hanafis, Sulaiman al-Qanuni, the Ottoman Sultan, he changed the rulings and substituted the hudud with other punishments. And they were people, but they were a minority. Because institutionalized religion doesn't work like that. Institutionalized religion is never in the favor or never speaking truly for the public. You have to understand something. Institutionalized religion is about power. You have to understand that, people. That it's about power. That's what it's about. And even the holiest, even holy people in the past, these scholars and great people, whether consciously or subconsciously, there was always a position of power, an element of power. Many of these ulama were judges. It was their careers. They used to rule over people. See, that changes the dynamic. When I pass a ruling, it gets implemented. See, people don't take these things into consideration. They think these guys were just, people just always praying nafal and always just like, mashallah, mashallah. There's nothing ever human about them. Of course not. They were as human as you and me. They were they may have been more intelligent or as intelligent as us. They would have been as cunning as any of us. They would have been as worldly as any of us. Don't think that they were some kind of angels. So are hadith revelation or not? Okay, I'll come to that in a moment. So the ulama, when they passed rulings, it wasn't in their interest to always be so kind to the public. It's not about kindness. Some of them were. That said, some of them were incredibly kind. Beginning with Imam Abu Hanifa from the beginning. From the early days, Imam Abu Hanifa was very kind with the public. And hence he was never part of the institution. And he was punished for that. He died in prison, refusing to become part of the institution. And his madhab is the opposite of him. His madhab is the embodiment of institutionalization. Imam Malik is another example. He spoke for the public and was punished for that, whipped, beaten. So this is the thing, you see. This is the thing. So, yeah. Anyway, people often forget this angle when they're speaking about scholars, and they think, oh my God, how can you question the motivations of scholars? Why do you think that they thought any differently? You think they didn't want to be popular? You think they didn't want to, for example, have influence, wield power? You think they didn't want these things? Of course they did. Don't be so naive. Don't be so naive. I'm not saying this, by the way. I'm not saying this. You two, two screens. I'm not saying this to turn people away from the ulama. I don't want you to have a distrust in the ulama. I love them. And I cherish them. You can see, you can just see one angle of several books I have of people. And to me, these are great people, but they are human, all too human. And I feel that you will love them even more by realizing they were human beings, as opposed to the halo effect of making them angelic. Right, so I'm just trying to take some questions. In Surah Baqarah, Allah commands Ibrahim to establish a prayer. So do we technically follow Prophet Abraham? Not sure if you answered it. No, Mufti Sahib, can you comment on the idea of Kareem? Every Muslim was born with a spiritual double Kareem. Kareemi. Kareem. Cream. यार ये cream क्या है? ये what cream? Maybe your thoughts are a bit distracted, cream. ये क्या गंदे गंदे सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं मुझसे? Why are people asking all these these naughty questions from me? What is this? Oh, you mean Qareen, the Qareen of the jinn and the Qareen of the angel. Does everybody have an angel and a devil with them? Do we all carry an angel and a devil? There's an angel, right, left. Damn, I really struggle to know my left and rights. People are going to say, yeah, this guy's sitting here answering people's questions, and yet he's handicapped on... I don't know why that is. And so the way I tell my left and right is I have to think of the hand I write with. So I'm left-handed, so I think left. But then I'm confused sometimes because I'm now ambidextrous. I write with both hands. So I think left, right, and then I've got to realize the stronger hand, and I think left. Right, so I suppose that's my disability. So yeah, so the left would be the demon, the devil, and the right would be the angel. Is this so? We think we're going around with our crew, our little. You're right there. This is my. Is there anything else to put on the other side? No. Right. So that's not true. So let's say you've got. Is this the example that on our shoulders we've got like one demon whispering? What a fantastic idea. Huh? Send messages to who? Wait, browse what website? And then we've got like an angel, let's say, giving us some good news. Like, is that what we're thinking? About to spray this carpet fresh into my own ear by accident here. Of course not. This is ridiculous. We don't, that's not how we work. People might believe things like that, but that's not true. This hadith of saying, look, first of all, I don't even think the hadith is that sahih, but I think the meaning of it is kind of true. I feel the meaning of it is true. That ma minkum illa wukila ma'ahu qarinum minal I believe it says qarinum min ash-shayatini wa qarinum min al-malaika. That there is none amongst you except he has allocated to him some like a companion, but qarin doesn't have to mean companion, but somebody that's joined to you or something that is attached to you from the demon and from the angelic realm, demonic realm and angelic realm. I believe that this is simply referring that this was non-literal speech. It was referring to the kind of insinuations that we have. That we will have that a man is trapped between these states, an angelic realm and a demonic realm. As Freud said, that look, that people are more moral than they think, yet far more immoral than they can imagine. So this thing that human beings, we fluctuate between these realms, that are we fallen angels or dignified apes? This is the question, the struggle of insan. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلٍ. That insan, he's awesome, incredible with the capacity that he or she has. Yet, he is found amongst the lowest of the low. Yaar, acha. Aap yahan pe kya kar rahe ho? What are you doing here? Ain't you meant to be insan? As John Ilya Sahib said, Damat Barakatuhu, he said, Wafa ka jab zikr aata hai, that when the topic of loyalty is discussed, to ashraful makhluqat kutte ki misal dete hain. He says that when the topic of loyalty is being discussed, the most noble of creation, meaning humans, give the example of a dog. That this is what we've resorted to, that loyalty is symbolized and personified by a dog. कुत्ते की मिसाल देते हैं. अच्छा हुआ सनम के बेवफा निकले, वफादार तो कुत्ता होता है. That's true, isn't it? So I feel that these things, so these things are symbolisms, metaphors. They're not actually true. Right, so let's take some other questions and then we'll go over the analyses as well, the reviews. What is going on? All right. YouTube gente, what's going on? What's going on? Right. What do you say about God being able to break his promise? But God, you said you're going to do it on Tuesday. I'm not. It's Tuesday and you broke your promise. That sounds so childish. And better the distinction between good promise break and bad one. You see, Allah can do what he wants. God can do. And what this means, what the promise element here is actually discussing threat. The term in Arabic is wa'id, not wa'ad. It's wa'id. Allah speaks, and it's called khulful wa'id. Can Allah go against his threat? So he's threatened to punish people with the hellfire. He's threatened to do this. Can he go against it? And many ulama, theologians of the past, said, yes, of course he can. He can go against it. Right, so what else, people? Let's take some Facebook questions, those of you that are posting there. And people feel, why has Mufti not answered them? Let's see. Let me see. Un momento, I'm just going in, logging in there, logging in. I'm in. Oh, right, no, that's gone to my actual live, which I don't want to go to. Right, here I am. Questions. How do you, Daniel Steve? Oh, rather, Daniel. Daniel Steve asks, how should a burial happen, and do you think it's right to bury in the UK when you only get the rights of the grave for 50 or 99 years? After that, they can dispose of your body if your descendants, if you have any, don't pay again for that land. Right, okay. Good question. Look, when an insan has left this world, he or she have left, okay. It is nice to be able to be remembered. I feel that would be nice. Let some people remember me, I guess, after I'm gone. I suppose we feel that we live on in this dunya amongst people if they remember us. Hence, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy when you can't remember someone. Don't you think so? That, or in the words of the poem, sitam to ye hai ke ab teri yaad ghor karne se yaad aati hai. So that's the tragedy, that to remember you, I have to now concentrate. That is a tragedy. Oof. Oh, those who have fallen to love. So I feel that, and there's nothing wrong in wanting to be remembered. Even the prophets in the Quran have asked for this. So you see the verse of the Quran, وَجَعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِ, that, and make those who come after me say a kind word about me. And in the tafsir of this ayah, many ulama like Qurtubi and all these people say there's nothing wrong in wanting to be praised. So I think it would be nice to have a tombstone and have it, not a mausoleum kind of thing, a tombstone, but be somewhere remembered. But if you ain't, it's not the end of the world. You've already kind of moved on. So in Muslim countries, usually graveyards are kind of allocated and almost quasi-sacred. So they're usually in villages or places, and they retain them as cemeteries. But here, you're right, there is a leasehold. 99 years is usually the general practice. And then it can be renewed by your offspring. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think people can be buried. 99 years is still a very long time after you're gone. And maybe if they renew it, they renew it. If they don't, they don't. If they don't, then think of it like this, that they're not like haramis. But then again, whose offspring are they? Whose nasal, whose progeny are they? Obviously, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. So if they forget you, then I guess they were only your offspring anyway to begin with. So obviously, it just goes to show that you too must have been a bit of a an ungrateful kind of. But the point here is that, look, I think that's not a problem in being buried. It's all good. It's all good if you want to. And I don't feel personally, about burials and funerals. I would really love for the Muslims to up their game, if I can say that, or to take it up a notch. I think, first of all, we don't need to be as panicky about the dead body as we do. So Muslims are like, release the dead body, release the dead body. They want it released the following day. I think they can take a few days. You can relax. It's not that. You can understand in the hadith why the Prophet ﷺ would have said, don't let a dead body stay there. It was the desert. It's scorching heat. A dead body. You can imagine what the heat is doing to a dead body. The preservation methods were not there. So do not delay, because it's going to distort and mutilate that figure. So don't do that. Now, in this day and age, when people are in the morgue and they're having, like, let's say it's going to take 5 days or a week, I don't think that's the end of the world. And I think Muslims need to calm down a bit with, that's my advice. Not that they're going to listen, but still, I would love for the ulama to be creative and speak like that, or about that. The other thing is, I would love for the funerals to have a memorial. It's such a shame that we don't have that. Our funerals are so disappointing. It's so disappointing. People turn up for a Salatul Janaza, which is the ritual, which is fine, mashallah, it's a ritual, it's a farewell, kind of ritual farewell. And that's good, that's fine. Say a little dua, and they're gone. And then people sit down and they do dhikr. And everybody that comes says, Allah ni marzi, Allah ni marzi. And then everybody says, Allah ni marzi. And then some guy says, Fatiha. And then everybody says, and then you just see people are just watching each other, blagging it. And then they just all kind of, and then another guy comes and he says, Fatiha. And then everybody does the same. And it's so boring to be there. Honestly, it's like, there's no, and then people are just chatting or they're on their phones. Why not have a memorial? Why not have something that actually remembers the person that died? That why not actually speak a bit about the person that died? As in, have something to present. This was the guy or the girl, this was her or this was him. This is where they were born. This is how they lived their lives. They were survived by this family. This was something that we remember them by. This was something that they often did. This was something that would be such a nice thing to do. It'd be so. I don't go to as many funerals as I should, but sometimes I've been in funerals and I've got no idea who this person is. Just I've heard some random name. Acha Haji Muhammad Fulan ka janaza is going to be the funeral, and people, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Done. Allah ni marzi, Allah ni marzi. And I feel that why not? This was an awesome opportunity to tell the people who this person was. Jahan mein tum aaye the, kya kar chale? In the words of Mir Taqi Mir, that what did you leave behind? What was your legacy? What did you used to do? What did she used to do? What were their likes? What were they? Just something. They were a person, for God's sake. And I just feel that we so lack this. And I wish, inshallah, may Muslims incorporate this. I mean, it would be so nice to see something. It would be so heartwarming to see some. If funerals were like that, I would go to so many funerals. It'd be nice to. It's a shame, but it'd be nice to kind of see people, and I think it would also give a true meaning of a condolence to those who have lived on from the family. Hearing these things, summing up the person's life, it's it's good. It's good, I think. But that's some khawatir wa afkari. It's some thoughts that I present to you. فَإِمْسَاكُمْ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ. You can either hold on to them or let them go with kindness. So, so what are some other questions? Are we meant to keep our right shoulder uncovered during the tawaf whilst in ihram? No, there's a certain part of the tawaf, some of the laps where you do that. That's all. It's not all of the laps. Hama has said, Salam Mufti Sahab, I watched your discussion with Abdullah Gondal. Although I personally can't stand the rhetoric, his discussion was really good to watch. I respect the fact that Abdullah remained respectful in his questions. I was also impressed in the way you answered all the questions, sat there and watched the whole thing. Vah, Hamarji, vah, you're doing it. Right, so, and I want to speak a bit about that. Let me just... Did the Prophet weep heavily when he saw his mother's grave? There's some narrations, I don't think they're that authentic, but it's very... I would believe that if the Prophet did attend his mother's grave, he would have been emotional. So I think that's very plausible. If it did happen, it sounds very genuine. It's not like it's not something that sounds kind of made up. Is it obligated to write peace be upon him after the Prophet's name? Not at all. Not at all. It's not obligatory. It's not even obligatory to say it like this. You don't have to. But it's something that really Muslims ought, like we do out of a love for the Prophet. That, may peace and blessings be upon him. The Prophet kind of taught us this, the art of giving, if you like, through sending blessings upon him. Some Muslims have turned this into a hijacking opportunity. So if somebody doesn't write, this I'm more pious than you, holier than thou. Oh, why did you not write sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Oh, this guy must... Astaghfirullah, he didn't write. Astaghfirullah, I didn't write the... I need... let me fully enact it. Astaghfirullah. This guy must hate the Prophet, must hate Islam. I would never do that. I would always write it. These kind of people are what destroy Islam. You see, if you want people to send peace and blessings upon the Prophet, teach them how to love the Prophet. Don't try to intimidate them or blackmail them or strong-arm them into kind of saying this stuff, guilt-tripping them, or trying to trip them out of the fold of Islam. Oh, you're not a real Muslim. Well, do you think that's how the companions around the Prophet behaved? That they... Of course not. These things are not like hell, heaven, compulsory kind of issues. These are just courtesies, propriety issues, people, etiquettes. That's what they are. Right, so... Right, okay. Somebody had asked me about the truth issue. I'll discuss that in a moment when I speak about Abdullah Gondal's discussion with me. What are your thoughts on the Jeddah World Fest, which will be in full swing on the 18th of July? Looks like I'm missing out. Wasn't Nicki Minaj supposed to be there? And now she isn't. Tawbah. How the heartbroken survive in this tormenting world. Right. So, God, my thoughts on it. Look, I don't really. To me, these things don't bother me. Let people do what they want to do. Why do you? You see, the problem is when you suppress people to that extent, they become. When they have an opportunity, they go wild. They go crazy because it's been suppressed. Let them just be who they want to be. Even if you think it's wrong, but let them make their wrong choices. Why is it all right for me to make my wrong choices, but it's not okay for those people to make their wrong choices? Islam didn't, lasta alayhim bi musaytir. You're not somebody to micromanage or control them. Let them be. Let them be people. If they want to go to a concert, let them go. That's their, if they want to invite Nicki Minaj, let them. If they want to, it's not your business. Why are you so caught up about, oh my God, how can Nicki Minaj or these people enter Saudi Arabia? What do you think Saudi Arabia is, for God's sake? What do you think this is? You're living in some cuckoo world if you think Saudi Arabia is some emblem of Islam. Of course it isn't. It has some of the craziest stuff going down in Saudi Arabia, in the kingdom. They call it the kingdom, people, al-mamlaka. In the mamlaka. Naam, ikhwan, fil mamlaka. The mamlaka is a notorious place. Those who know, right? There's very little of this. Let people. It's not like they're doing it in Mecca. They're doing it, in a different place. Anyway, that's my approach. If you're unhappy with it, stop it. If you're unhappy with it, don't let it happen. So it doesn't bother me. People can do whatever they want. That's my approach to life. Right. So, could you provide your thoughts on Muhammad hijab? I haven't heard what he says, so I don't want to just make it up. So I'll leave that for another time. Right. Okay. Let's move on to our summary of. First of all, I want to give some feedback on the discussion with Abdullah Gondal. Then I'd like to discuss some points, my thoughts on Yasir Qadi, Sheikh Yasir Qadi's interview with, I think it's called 21C. It's like a kind of podcast interview he did with them. And he's faced a lot of criticism. And then maybe a quick bit of Masala, Mufti Masala, people. Right, so, first of all, my discussion with Abdullah Gondal, I absolutely loved the discussion. It was a great opportunity to have a dialogue. I have been in touch on and off with Abdullah Gondal, not so frequently in touch, but I've received some messages. I've sent him some messages over Facebook for about a year now. And I just never really, he had asked me to have a dialogue last year, but I was just caught up in my own thing. And he reminded me again recently. And I thought, well, why not? Let's do it. Yeah. And so it was a great discussion. I feel it was a very truthful and honest discussion. That's what I felt. I'm not saying you need to feel that if you watch it, but that's from my side. And the purpose behind it was to show how people with different mindsets can talk to each other and how they can, with reason, put forth or justify, I suppose, their standpoint, okay, in correlation to the other. Like, why do you, I understand that it doesn't make sense to you, but why does faith make sense to me? The gist of what I was stating, if you want to sum up the whole thing, the gist of it was that, you see, bigger than these little finite issues of Islam you can come to, and I've made many videos on this, like how do you answer slavery, how do you answer this, how do you answer that. So these are the kind of what in Arabic we call the juz'iyat, the intricacies within religion, within faith. But then you have the universal, you have faith as a whole, as a collective. Why faith? My point was, before we even get to discussing the finites, we need to discuss the universal issue. Why believe in anything? And I felt that that was an important aspect. Why? Because I wanted to show, and I want to continue showing this, the complexity of this discourse. That this is not a simple discussion. When people say, why do you believe? It's dumb to believe. That it's not actually dumb to believe, because the fact that we believe in something, and I was anchoring this in some other topics like consciousness, for example. Well, how do you answer consciousness? Is this not the one of the greatest mysteries that we as humans and that we're struggling with? I mean, if you look at some of the leading, and I never got to get onto this point, but if you look at some of the leading physicists, some great physicists, and people like Bernard Carr and many other people, they feel that where we've arrived in physics from M theory, which kind of ties together all the superstring theories. So if you go right into the quantum level, up to the cosmos level, multiverse theory, I'm not saying it's true, but even taking that, so you've got M theory and the multiverse theory. Now, what they feel, what is missing in the middle is mind, the consciousness, and maybe there's an ultimate structure. And in fact, Bernard Carr is working on that, an ultimate structure that could possibly bind together the grand universal theory of everything, that would not only bind together nth superstring theory with perhaps a multiverse, but also have consciousness in there. So I wanted to, because what I'm trying to show is that reality is complex. It's not simple. And we are treating some things very simply in an uber reductionist manner. Like we're saying, okay, so where is faith? Where is God? But then, where is consciousness? Where are these extras? So for example, M theory to work, which is the main kind of superstring theory, there must be 11 dimensions. I know in the bosonic kind of string theory, there's many more in the 20s, and in superstring theory, there's 10 dimensions. So you've got the 3 dimensions that we have and the element of time. But in string theory, superstring theory, you have another 6 elements. And in M theory, you have another 7 on top to make 11 dimensions. Where are these dimensions? Where are they? I mean, my point is that this is real. I'm not making this stuff up. This is real stuff. So I just wanted to acknowledge, put that out there and say that, look, it's when we have learnt about these things, it's not so easy to dismiss the topic of God as just it's just silly. It's not silly. It's not silly. And more than anything, it provides so much meaning to people's lives. What do you do with that? Where do you go with that? Why do you feel that it's okay to dismiss that so easily? It's not, to me, that's not dismissible so easily. It's something that provides so much meaning to people. And so so this ties into an element of that discussion where somebody had asked me, can you elaborate on when Abdullah Gondal asked me about truths? And I said that I feel that, yes, the Quran, because he asked me, why do you feel the Quran is true? And I said, well, it depends on what you mean by truth, because I feel the Quran has narratological truths. And I've explained that a little earlier on. It's like a holistic approach to real metaphor, symbolism, metaphorical truths, all kinds of truths put together as what I'm calling, or what I'm referring to as narratological truths. So he said, well, look, I said, well, what do you mean by truths? And he said, well, it's quite simple. I mean by that, evidently, like jinn, the Quran says jinn, but we can't see the jinn. Where are the jinn? And I said, yeah, that is empirical truth. Empiricism is the approach of quantifying, measuring things. What scientists do in the lab, That is empirical, things we can actually, tangible data. And I accept that. I accept empiricism. I'm not against empiricism. I love science. I have a background in psychology. I have a degree in science. I am very fond of science. I love it. But it's unfair to make the claim that human beings go about their day-to-day lives through the prism or viewing the world through the lens of empiricism only. In fact, that is not true at all. We do look at things empirically, but much of what we look around, much of the things, or many of the things around us that we deeply value are not empirical. And I gave the example of friendship, of relationships. Relationships are not empirical. Human beings value them so much. And this was my point, that so many things around us. And I gave the discussion of art. I gave the allegory of art because, the analogy of art, because I was trying to say that if you want to speak about quantifiable data, then in the world of art, these things, these paintings, for example, they have quantifiable prices. They're not just, they have a value to them. Something, and I spoke about whether it's going to be a Vincent van Gogh kind of painting, or whether it's going to be a Picasso, or it's going to be a Pollock, or whether it's going to be a Rubens or a Rembrandt. Whatever we're looking at, these things have amazing costs to them. They have amazing values. Can you say that? So, for example, we could take, we could take a painting that's sold at, let's say you take a particular painting that's sold for 82 million. Is that a false claim? And you may say, well, no, but that's subjective. And you say, well, it's subjective, but it's shared. There's an intersubjectivity. It's not just one guy saying, oh, this is 85 million or 82.5 million, this painting, for example. That's not what's being said. Okay, that's definitely not what is being said. So the question is that people agreeing on the value of something, is that not real? Because truths simply mean, when I say to you that this is the truth, I mean this correlates to something real. It translates as something real. Now, there's many forms of reality that are real. They are very real to us. They may not be tangible. Like relationships are not tangible. They're not actually physical. Possession, proper, things that are owned, possession. These are not tangible. I mean, I could say, look, I own this phone, but the concept, the proprietorial claim of ownership is not something that exists. It's not, what makes that mine just because it's in my hand or because I've made a claim. Money is another example. Governments, laws, rights, all of these things exist in the psychosocial realm. They exist in our minds because we've shared the value of these things. So what I was trying to say is you accept these things as being real enough. So is it okay to simply view something through empiricism? Like if I said, are human rights real? Are human rights real? Like, is the value of life real? Where does it say? Where does it say that the life of, I'm just saying, in nature, it doesn't show us that the world of human life or any life is sacred. It doesn't show anything. There's nothing. These are arbitrary understandings that we share as human beings. And because these exist in the interpersonal space, they're not like, you can't measure. I can measure the weight of this phone. I can measure the shape. I can measure how it looks approximately in terms of color. I can measure certain things. They're quantifiable. I can't measure things like for example, laws. Like you can enumerate them, but what makes them real? It's just that people have agreed upon them. What makes money real? It's just that people have agreed upon money to have a certain value. What makes these paintings so valuable? It's just that people have agreed on these things. Now, it's not, that's what I was trying to explain, that there are different layers of truth, that the empiricist lens of truth is good for a particular thing, for when you're measuring something. But to take scripture, which is like a holy book, and say, well, we're going to measure the veritability and the truthfulness of this book. So somebody takes the Quran and they say, well, we're going to measure the truthfulness of this book by simply the lens of empiricism. Like, we're only going to measure what we can measure. So it mentions an elephant. Okay, now we can speak about an elephant. It mentions this. So we're going to measure it like that. Is that an acceptable way? Like, to me, that's not enough for scripture, because when you look at human beings' lives, their lives ain't like that. What does scripture do for people? It gives them meaning. Most Muslims have never read the Quran with meaning. They've never read it with meaning. Yet the Quran as a book, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, as a book, as a concept, as scripture, as a concept, it provides so much meaning to the lives of people. Does that amount to nothing? That was my point. Does that amount to nothing? Is that just like, it's useless because I can't measure it? But then, if we're going to take that particular approach, then why ain't we doing away with everything? Why aren't you doing away with relationships? Why aren't you doing away with authority, with laws, with governments? None of these things can actually truly be measured in that sense. They're just human beings with human rights, all of these things. So that was my kind of approach, that we need to be much more dynamic when we look at scripture. And I'm not saying that people need to agree with this, by the way. I just wanted to be able to have a sophisticated, hopefully that was the hope, and it was, dialogue with somebody where I can express myself like that. And I think it was wonderful. I did love the dialogue, and I did say I look forward to many more. I'm going to look at my timetable. I may, this coming weekend, have a similar dialogue with Haris Sultan. I did actually want to have, we'd been in touch as well, and I saw his dialogue with Hamza Ali Abbasi, and it was once again incredibly respectful, civil, and it was really thought-provoking. So I would like to have a dialogue with him. So inshallah, maybe this coming weekend, I'll let me just verify. Let me just ensure that I can make it. That's all. Right. So that's that. And I felt a lot of people loved the dialogue that me and Abdullah Gondal had, and some people felt that it wasn't it was informative, but it wasn't entertaining enough, in the sense that I wasn't bashing him and he wasn't bashing me. And I think, look, that's just dumb tribalistic thought. I was not there to bash him, and I wasn't going to agree to a dialogue just to be bashed. What is the point? And Abdullah Gondal wouldn't, I'm sure he wouldn't want to do that. So this is just dumb speak, people being very kind of Neanderthal speak. Oh, you atheist, you Muslim, you fight, run, fight. This wasn't what it was about. So I wasn't looking to do that, and I would have been disappointed if it was like that, to be honest with you. And alhamdulillah, it wasn't. And I did read quite a few of the comments, and some people were like that. They were kind of saying, oh, how come? They were upset with him. Why didn't he get to corner me enough? And I felt, look, that's just stupid. Apan to cheesy aisi hai. I don't easily get cornered. I'm joking. I was like, well, obviously that wasn't the objective. It wasn't what we're trying to do. We're trying to build bridges here, not burn them. And yeah, so I wanted to share that summary. And some people were kind of hating on him, saying that he's an ex-Muslim, murtad, atheist, kafir, dirty kafir, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Guys, grow up, man. Grow up, honestly. What is this? What is this? This is not this is not what Islam teaches. This is not what the Quran or the Prophet would have ever taught you to do. Ever. The Prophet didn't go around in his time just bad mouthing Abu Jahl or the people who kind of opposed him from Medina. He didn't just from Mecca. He didn't just go around. He didn't go around doing that. In fact, he made dua for them. He prayed for them. This it disappoints me, and some people have genuinely raised some concerns with me. They've said that look, that he is very sinister against Muslims, and he's very hateful, and he's very bitter, and he's very venomous, and he's made a lot of videos mocking Islam, mocking the Quran, mocking Allah, mocking his messenger, and the same thing with other ex-Muslims as well. This is what people have said to me. A few people have actually messaged me like that and saying that, look, we understand he's very nice and respectable with you, but really this is what he's like. So we want you to take that into consideration. And I feel that, look, this is my heartfelt response, okay? This is my heartfelt response. First of all, I'm grateful to you guys for reaching out to me for my kind of safety and my concern, as in looking out for me. So shukran, may Allah bless you guys. Secondly, I want to say, look, people who hate Islam and people who mock Islam, whose fault is that? Like, I want you to think a bit deeper here. Who's at fault? These people have never met the Prophet. I've never met the Prophet. These people haven't met the Prophet. They've never met God. I've never met God. You've never met God. When somebody says, I hate the Prophet was a warlord, he was barbaric, or he may have done some good, but he had barbarism, and he was like this, or he, and they say horrible things about the Prophet. Well, a'yadhu billah, that he was a pedophile, or he was like this, or he was a murderer, or he was these things. When they say these things, where did they get these things from? Did they, for example, make them up? Are they saying things like, oh, the Prophet really was just a Chinese person? I mean, are they totally making up stuff? They're getting this from what Muslims are putting out there. Muslims are treating other Muslims in this way. They're putting all this stuff to Muslims, that this is what the Prophet was like. Oh, the Prophet said, kill him. The Prophet said, with a sword. The Prophet said this. The Prophet said this. The Prophet married a 6-year-old. Astaghfirullah. We, as a Muslim collective, are at fault. Not these people. Not these ex-Muslims. Naturally, they're going to be bitter. Obviously. And then look at the hate that they get. Like, let's just be honest. The hate that they get, of course you're going to hate back. It's just natural. Like, I've seen some of these people won't just hate on. You'll get people with big beards, holy, religious, saying, you dog, you this, you mum, your dad. And they don't stop there. Oh, we're going to rape your wife. I've read comments like this. We're going to rape your wife. Like, what kind of... Wow, like, who's representing religion here? Like, who's representing the Prophet? So naturally, you're saying, if somebody was saying these things to me, I would be hurt. I mean, to some extent, I may block out a lot of it, but to some extent, if so many people said to me all these horrible things, and then I will react. So I understand that these guys are bitter. I understand that they say things and they mock the religion. But I feel that the religion gives them the freedoms to do that. If they want to do it, do it. Allah is not that, like, to me, my understanding of Allah is not that he's so weak that if people mocked him, he somehow crumbles and gets all angry and like, I can't take it now. If that's the picture of God, then you're worshipping some kind of a child. That's not God. You need to find God and worship God, because that's not God. So to me, these things don't hurt Allah, they don't hurt the Prophet, they don't hurt Islam. If somebody is bitter, I want to understand why are they bitter, as opposed to just saying, well, I'm not going to talk to this person, he mocks Islam. By that definition, I'm sure people feel I mock certain things. We have to honor the freedoms that people have. If they want to say something, even if we don't like it, let them say. It's not a problem. It doesn't. Sure, I wouldn't say those things, but it's them, it's their freedoms. Okay, they have freedoms which are enshrined in Islam and in the world that we live in. So that's my piece on that. So I hope that that was just some feedback on that. I want to chat quickly about Sheikh Yasir Qadi's interview as well. Before I get into that, I wanted to make a quick announcement. I've been asked that there's a group of doctors that are going out. It's been on my mind to kind of announce this, and I just wanted to. And they're going on the Hajj, and what it is they're getting involved in their volunteer GPs who will be going on Hajj to provide free medical consultations to British people, especially, maybe to others, but to British in Mecca and Medina. And this is, I know there's quite a few people, they can be contacted through Facebook. If you search www.britishhajdelegation.org.uk, you can find them. I know people like Dr. Ripon is going, and a few other people who I know personally, great people. So, mashallah, may Allah bless their efforts, and they're doing a great work for humanity. So, with that note, there's also an enterprise of a project of a friend and student of mine, Momo, Mamadou Tal. Those of you that know him, he's running a project called Muslim Millenials, which is to do with young Muslims, especially in the West, and how the kind of the pathways that they're going through, the thoughts, the discussions. It's a very an awesome enterprising project. They've got a fundraising kind of crowdfunding effort going. So people look out for Muslim Millenials or Mamadou, his page, and kind of support their cause. Young people, we need to kind of support them. They're Muslims, their minds are in the right place, and they're kind of cool. So that's awesome. We need more of that, to be fair. Right, so that's it. And somebody had been quite upset about this question of Palestine. I think I'll discuss this in more detail later on. What they said is that somebody reached out to me with a heartfelt kind of message, and I think he may be Palestinian, that's why. But he said that I, in a previous clip, had mentioned that that they should just settle with a two-state solution. And he said that he was really disappointed and hurt and stuff like this, that I said that. You see, look, I am against all kind of oppression. I really, I am. I'm against Gusme. No, I'm against oppression, right? And I am against what, like, most, if not all, Muslims out there and non-Muslims against the tyranny of the state of Israel in what they're doing. I can't understand how they, with great impunity, can bomb innocent young souls and things like that. May Allah grant ease to those people suffering there. Unquestionably, my thoughts and du'as are with you guys and with Muslims anywhere, wherever they're studying, wherever they're struggling, wherever or suffering, whether that's in Rohingya, Myanmar, whether it's in other parts of the world, Kashmir, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, wherever. And all humans, not just Muslims, right? But the issue here is, what is the greatest thing? The greatest thing is the human life. This is the greatest thing, people. We've got to a point where we feel now that no, it's Muslims should die for that. That they feel that Muslims ought to die for the land of Palestine. And I get the fact that human beings, not just Muslims, are very passionate over land and they will be willing to die. But do I feel that it's worth dying over land? I don't feel it's worth dying over land. I don't feel that Islam instructs you to die over land. Islam does instruct you to do self defense, that is true. But Islam also teaches you that, look, at times, sometimes you're not going to win. And the truth is that when we look at the state of affairs right now, Palestinians are just suffering. And the rest of the Muslim world is saying to them, look, now, hold on. So we've created a narrative that they need to hold on and die for it. Don't worry, it's a great cause. But the people saying it ain't prepared to die for it. The irony is all the rest of the world that's egging them on to die for it, they're comfortably sitting, reclining in their armchairs, and just happy, living life. But they're telling these people, no, you guys don't budge, just die for it. It's worth it. But why is it worth it? The Prophet said that the honor of a Muslim, let alone his blood or her blood, is a drop of their. The Prophet said the blood of a believer is worth many-fold more, much more in the eyes of God than the entire Kaaba. The entire Kaaba doesn't mean that much. Human life is above everything. The rest is brick and mortar, people. It can be replaced. So I would say that the main thing is peace. Having some peace, being able to live lives and not being murdered. It is very unfortunate what's going on, but it doesn't seem to be stopping. And so, of course, I would say a solution, whatever the solution be. As far as Palestine being a holy land, a sacred land, in all honesty, that's a separate discussion of theology. I don't actually believe that Palestine is holy in that sense, because there is nothing from the Quran or Sunnah that actually proves that that is authentic. I believe that it was a land where many prophets lived. I accept, if that's what you mean by holy, then yes. If you mean by far association, as in the Israelite prophets lived there, Jesus lived there, Abraham wandered around there. If you want to believe that John, Yahya was there, and these great prophets lived in that part of the world, then yes, that's true. They did live in that part of the world. But if you mean that it's holy, as in Allah has made the land of Palestine a holy place forever till the day of judgment, then where do we get this feeling from? Because if we're going to be honest, the evidence that the Sunnis have for this, that we as the mainstream Muslims have for this, is not actually strong. Because what Muslims say is Masjid al-Aqsa, which means the farthest mosque. But if we're going to be honest, there was a debate in early Islam that said the farthest mosque was not in Palestine, but it was referring to a point in the heavens. It just meant a point of prostration, because it said min al-Masjid al-Haram, which was not a mosque at the time. The Haram, which was Mecca, the Kaaba, was not a mosque, because in Mecca it wasn't a mosque when the Prophet lived there. It was run by the pagans. But it was just called Masjid, meaning the place of prostration. Masjid al-Haram, the sacred Masjid, ila al-Masjid al-Aqsa, the farthest point. Why would the farthest point be Palestine? And then the other issue was that who pinpointed where the Masjid al-Aqsa was? Because nobody ever witnessed it. So allegedly in the time of Umar, Ka'b al-Ahbar, a Jewish scribe, said, oh, this is where it was, close to the Temple of Solomon. Oh, okay. I mean, how do you know it was there? Ka'b al-Ahbar met the Prophet and refused to accept Islam. I mean, he was in the time of the Prophet, didn't embrace Islam. Surprisingly embraces Islam for some reason in the time of Umar radiallahu anh. And then he seems to become ever so knowledgeable about Islam, and most of the things that creep into Islam from Israelite texts come through him. Ka'b al-Ahbar. He spreads all kinds of stuff. And one of the things he spreads is he teaches Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh where the Prophet prayed. I mean, how did he know where the Prophet prayed? He wasn't there. No Muslim was there if it was Palestine, let's say. And the Muslims that allegedly transmit the narration of the night journey, Most of these people weren't Muslim at that time. This was early Mecca. Who was transmitting? I mean, let's just be honest. Like these things, and this is why the Shia, many of the Shia, refused to accept that Masjid al-Aqsa was where was in Palestine. They said Masjid al-Aqsa was in the heavens, and that's why even till today, many of the Shia still believe that. But the Sunnis, on this point, if we're going to be honest, our arguments are weak. Just because a Jewish convert said this is where it was, we all accepted it. It's like, okay, but obviously to the Jewish person, it is going to be holy. So he probably just tied it in with his Jewish background, and Muslims just kind of went with it. So I don't buy into the theological aspect about Palestine being a sacred space like that. If you mean sacred because many prophets lived there, like Jesus lived there and things, then that's fine. I accept that argument. But that if you mean like it's holy, like for today, like it has rituals, then I don't think we have any strong evidence to show that. That said, that doesn't justify the brutality against the Palestinians in any way. It's unacceptable. What Israel are doing is, I mean, it's inhumane. But unfortunately, they're not going to stop. So my point was the preservation of life comes before the preservation of land. I wanted to kind of clarify that because some people were upset. But that's my kind of thoughts on it. Right, guys, moving on to quite quickly the Sheikh Yasir Qadi. A lot of people had sent me yeah, so a quick point on the Jerusalem things. Somebody had asked that Moses told his people enter al-Ard al-Muqaddasa, the sacred land, and it was sacred for the Israelites. It was sacred. I'm not saying it wasn't sacred for them. That's why they built their holy temple there. Obviously, to them, they were told that this is going to be your holy land in the Bible. And in the Quran, it quotes that as well about them saying, you enter this sacred land. I'm not saying that to the Israelites it wasn't sacred. Does that mean it's sacred for the whole of humanity? Where's the evidence for that? That's what I'm saying. Now, you can say, well, I'm going to extrapolate from that because Moses said to them, he never said to us, but if you're going to say, well, by extension, I want to take that, I mean, I don't see that as strong evidence. I'm not saying there's nothing that you couldn't lean in on anything, but it's not. If we're going to be reason based, we're not going to find many things that really show it being such a holy place. And if it was such a holy place, the Prophet would have encouraged people to go there. And this hadith that Abu Hurairah narrates, I can guarantee that he said, don't travel to except 3 pilgrimages, Mecca, Medina, and Masjid al-Aqsa. I can guarantee you he picked that up from Ka'b al-Ahbar. He picked that up from, because Ka'b al-Ahbar is one of the teachers of Abu Hurairah, who influences him on many things. In fact, in the Muwatta, Imam Malik brings a hadith of Abu Hurairah saying, I traveled to Mount Sinai so I could spend some time with Ka'b al-Ahbar, and he taught me so many things. And so this is part of the problem. Right, so moving on. Right, so there's been a bit of controversy. I don't know how big of a controversy it is, but Sheikh Yasir Qadi has had an interview on 21C where he's opening up and trying to be quite transparent. He's had a lot of hate for it. What are my thoughts on some of this? The gist of those of you that haven't seen it, I'm sure you can check it out. The gist of it is he's trying to say that we need to move on. The institutes of the East are outdated. The institutes of the West, and we need to rely more on local ulama and things like that. I heard the whole thing. I went through it. I think it's about just under 2 hours or something, or is it about 1.5 hours or something? Now, he appears to have moved on from where he was in the past, and I commend that. I still feel that people like Sheikh Yasir al-Qadi, the standpoint he's even taking now, even though it's a bit more it's more enlightened, or a bit more he's kind of owning up to a bit more. He's not owning up to the whole thing, and this is the problem. He's still too fearful of the backlash of his sectarian kind of group, because he says in there, no, I'm not. I don't care about any backlash. I don't care about criticism. It's not true, because even when he was speaking, he was so hesitant to say certain things, and then he kept qualifying them with caveats, saying, oh, we need to stop idolizing the scholars of the East, of Saudi Arabia. But then he would say, yes, but I see your point, but I don't want you to misconstrue this. I don't want you to. And I feel that this is exactly the problem. This is the problem that will always enshroud people like Sheikh Yasir Qadi, unless they completely shred this shroud. But if they do that, their own following will eat them up. So they have. This is a battle that they will continue to stay on, because they can't provide. See, because he was trying to say that, oh, the Salafi Aqidah doesn't really make that much sense anymore. I mean, who today really, in their reason-based, in 2019, believes God has one foot and two right hands, and he jumps around and moves around and does things like this, and has, these kind of things, and he has like two fingers, or this is stupid. Who believes things like this? And he was trying to say that, look, this Aqidah is man-made. But he kept kind of coming back on his word. He would say it and then kind of try to qualify it and try to apologize almost for it, and say, look, no, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, that kind of approach. And I felt that, it's good. I commend you for having the courage to be somewhat transparent. But I feel that if you really want to go out and make that difference, you have to completely become transparent, which I fear that he may not be able to do. I mean, I hope he does, but at this stage, it's far from it. We have to also remember that it is, unfortunately, and I know he's changed now, and I accept that, but the problem of this dogmatism that we're struggling with, it was unfortunately people like Sheikh Yasir Qadi who were involved in the making of that dogmatism. This is their Frankenstein, or they are a part of the manufacturers of this very Frankenstein that we are dealing with now. So what? And I feel that has, he does admit that, look, yes, I had these kind of views, but he doesn't. I'm not saying he has to own up to this for me, but a personal kind of owning on his own level, acknowledge that his fierce da'wah campaign, promoting this kind of dogmatism for years on end, has contributed to the problem, that the Frankenstein and the monster that he's trying to grapple with right now. So, I mean, I hope, I pray, may Allah, and I hope that he has the strength and courage to kind of completely become transparent, and to just be honest and say, look, guys, this stuff is it's just made up. Like, I'm not saying you can't believe it, you can believe it, but let's just be honest. The Prophet and the companions and those people that came after them didn't really believe in things like this, or we definitely have no proof that they did. So but until he does that, and until he embraces the true voice of reason, it's difficult to really provide solutions for modern day problems. Because if you're going to be going out on videos saying things like, saying Merry Christmas is haram, or saying this is haram, or saying this, you're still creating a kind of separatist society. And this was another strange thing I found in the interview, is that he spoke about, or maybe in the UK there's enough Muslims to create a political party. I thought, what on earth are you on about? Like, that is the last thing Muslims need here. Muslims don't need to become more segregated. We're already too segregated. Muslims need to be part and parcel of the society, not just kind of living in enclaves, their own kind of little caves. That's not what we need. And that's ridiculous. And I mean, if that's what he meant when he said that, that's very disappointing to hear. So yeah, I mean, that was something that he kind of mentioned throughout the whole thing, and he highlighted how places like Yale had really opened up his cognitive capacity, or his analytic skills had been sharpened when he went to Yale University. But there was an irony that he said that local scholars need to people need to rely more on local scholars, which was awesome. But then he qualified it by something that just cancelled out the whole thing. He said, but the local scholars need to at the same time make sure they get verified by all their peers. Acha, 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 acha. Acha, gup. This is what we call gup. अच्छा फेंक रहे हैं आप अच्छा नहीं हमारा कसूर है it's our fault. I thought you were genuinely giving some insights. Little did I know that you were just dishing out. They need to come out with innovative ways of thinking, but they need to at the same time get that vouched by all their peers and scholars around them. Acha, acha, acha. This is when you stick your head out, look, and then go back to that cuckoo land. Forgetting that even he, despite having a platform which is a Salafi platform, which was handed to him on a plate, and through that he got his following, forgetting that even he, right now, for saying this, is being disowned by his peers. This is the challenge, isn't it? So they were my thoughts. I felt that maybe he can, inshallah, I'd love to see him come out with more kind of enlightened things. I'd love to have a discussion with him, inshallah, in the future. But this is the problem, you see. He won't. I mean, I hope he changes his view in the future, but he won't. He won't otherwise have a discussion with people like me. And that's once again the big problem with some of these figureheads who, they don't really engage with the day-to-day issue, and they don't want to deal with problems in real time. But yeah, nevertheless, I was asked to share my thoughts, and I share them. I definitely agree with a lot of what he was saying. I agree that this is a Frankenstein that we need to get rid of, that we need to stop, exoticizing the East, in the sense that anybody who comes from Pakistan, a Maulvi, must know so much better. That's not true. Or Saudi Arabia, the same. That local ulama are talented. We need to kind of refer to them. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with him saying that Yale University is much more competent than Medina University. I mean, that's just a given. Medina University, does it produce anything? Honestly, I am totally unimpressed by Medina University. To me, if somebody said, I'm going to Medina University, I'd just be like, okay. I don't know why on earth you're doing that, but okay, there must be some reason. It's totally unimpressive. Medina University doesn't even score anywhere on an academic scale. It's a university, but it doesn't even count. Al-Azhar today is in a poor and terrible condition, but at least it still counts. This doesn't even count. It's like okay. So yeah, but I mean, so he highlighted some valuable points, and he did get a lot of criticism, but still it took a lot of courage to own up to that. So I do commend that. So Sheikh Yasir Ji, keep it going, man. Keep it going. Hang in there. Stay strong. Stay strong. That's what we're talking about, hombre. Stay strong. Right. So, guys, I know it's getting very late. So, some Mufti Masala segment, right? So, I've been asked. A lot of people have sent me a few posts to do with Sahih Bukhari and Sheikh Yaqoubi. And they've asked me, what is going on here? You've critiqued Bukhari, but yet Sheikh Yaqoubi, Muhammad al-Yaqoubi, claims to have brought out the most authentic version of Sahih Bukhari. And I heard this, And हम ससुरा कंफ्यूज हो गए यार ये most authentic narration of Bukhari यार ये हो क्या रहा है यार I was confused, I got the confused. So I was like, what is this about? Like, what is Sheikh Yaqoubi onto here? And so several people were sending me this, and I was like, wow, like I need to really investigate this. Lo and behold. अच्छा ससुरा marketing हो रही है. This is simply marketing. Right, look, people. So there was this several people, several posters, several statuses saying that Sheikh Yaqoubi, who, by the way, I think is a great person. I don't have anything. I don't harbor any ill feelings towards Sheikh Yaqoubi. I think Sheikh Yaqoubi is actually much more revolutionary in his thought than his murids allow him to be. I think he's much more forward thinking. I'm aware that he says things like shaking hands with women is not haram. I'm aware that his thoughts on maslaha and revising the rulings of hudud and things like this are very forward thinking, but he's restricted to say a lot of things in public, I think, out of fear of losing the kind of the following that he has. And that's a separate and awesome subject study for someone. That where does the power lie? Because you'd assume that the power is wielded by the kind of cult head. And I'm not trying to say, but in honesty, all these sects are cults. But I'm not trying to say that in a negative, pejorative sense. But you'd think that when you have a groupthink, the power lies with the figurehead. But then the figurehead is so compromised to meet the requirements of the masses that this is such a phenomenal research question. That where does the power lie? That why is the figurehead so restricted? Because you would think he wields this great power, but amazing. I'm just so wowed by that. If somebody does research on that, please share it with me. Right, so let me tell you, so there was a lot of these statuses and posters saying that Sheikh Yaqoubi has brought out the most authentic version of Bukhari based on the Sultaniya. The Sultaniya copy, people. So everybody's wowed. Now, I've obviously made a detailed video on Bukhari Gate explaining what the Sultaniya and all these things are over a year ago. But humko kaun dekhta hai yaar? I'm just like somebody in the corner saying, and they're like, everybody's like, what is that retard on about? Right? Whereas, obviously, I'm not a grand sheikh of a tariqah or a Allama sahib. Nobody's going to really listen to me. So now that Sheikh Yaqoubi has said this, everybody's, wow, Sultaniya, acha, Sultaniya nikal aa gayi hai. Yaar, so everybody's after the Sultaniya. So let me now pause that for a moment. Very briefly, if you haven't watched my Bukhari Gate and you're bored, why don't you take some time out and watch it? It's on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe. Otherwise, this one not nice. Right? So, right, people, you've got to understand something. Bukhari, nobody has an authentic manuscript of Bukhari today, as in going back to Imam Bukhari. All of Sahih Bukhari comes through one student called Farabri. Despite Imam Bukhari having thousands of students, it only comes through this one, who, by the way, nobody that ever knew him vouched for him as reliable in hadith. That is one of the biggest problems with Sahih Bukhari. But let's put that aside. He then transmits this through several students, namely 6 or 7, he has other students, but these are the main ones. Out of the 6 or 7, 3 are the top key figureheads. You have Mustamli, you have Ibn Hamaway, you have Kushmayhani. These are the top 3. You have others as well, Ibn Sakan and other people as well, Marwazi, Abu Zayd al-Marwazi and other people. But these 3, they actually admit to moving his copy around, as in putting this hadith in that chapter heading, changing the chapter headings, doing things. They admit to this. This is accepted. So far, what I've said is an accepted fact. No theory. No theory. This one fact. These three, there's a student of this called Abu Dhar al-Harawi. Remember him as the guy who originally comes from Afghanistan. He's originally probably a Pathan. But amazing. Why? Because obviously, apart from being a Hafid of Hadith, he's Maliki in Madhab people. So he's a legend, right? So Abu Dhar al-Harawi is the student of these three. So portions of his writing that people copied from him are found today throughout the world. And other people that come just after him, some of al-Marwazis, some of people like al-Asili who come slightly around his time, and then some people after. So these are like, we're going 5-6 layers after Imam Bukhari, and you can find some portions of Sahih Bukhari. When this reaches the 7th century of Islam, there is a guy called Yunini, Sharafuddin al-Yunini, a Hanbali scholar who is commissioned in Egypt, I believe. Now, he is commissioned to review Sahih Bukhari. So he does. It's a long project, takes him spans around over a year. Now, he really works on it. He gets the help of the famous grammarian Ibn Malik. They get rid of all these errors in Sahih Bukhari. And this new revised version is called the Yunini copy. The Yunini copy is actually lost. Okay, so that's lost as well. Nobody on earth has Yunini's manuscript. It does not exist. Anybody who says that either does not know or is misleading. Some people copied from him. So you have one person, Abdul Wahab al-Nuwairi, he copied from him. So 2 of his copies are present, right? People have them in museums and things like that. And then there's a few hundred years later, you've got some people, Al-Qaisari is one. You've got another person who come in the 1100s. So we're talking 500 years after Yunini, who happen to claim that they have a copy based on a copy, based on a copy, based on a copy, based on Yunini. Their copies are found. So this is the kind of, and you have other people around that era whose copies are found. Now, fast forward to the beginning of, or the ending of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century, Sultan Abdul Hamid II, Ottoman ruler, Sultan, he commissioned a group of scholars to review Sahih Bukhari to get the best copy they could. So they got these copies, which were based on the Yuniniya. They're not the actual copy of Yuniniya, they're based on it. And the different manuscripts, like I mentioned, that are based on it, they then put it together, made one copy. Then they printed this copy. This copy they made was called the Sultaniya, the first version of the Sultaniya. This was edited by a group of ulama, maybe 17, 18 great shuyukh from Al-Azhar, who took out hundreds of mistakes, over 100 at least they document. They took out several mistakes from this manuscript, and then that got printed. This was printed by a publishing house called Darul Bulak, and then this became known and widespread as the Sultaniya. All copies today of Sahih Bukhari are based on this copy that are widespread, all of them. So you can, unless it's some rare copy that's trying to, but you can go to your local corner shop. If your corner shop sells Bukhari, it's going to be based on the Sultaniya. That's what it is. They're all based on the Sultaniya. So now we're going to reconvene this story with this new project that Sheikh Yaqoubi has launched. So Sheikh Yaqoubi has announced that this copy is so amazing because it's based on the Sultaniya, which was which makes no absolute sense, because all copies that are present today are based on the Sultaniya. So I don't understand. So when he's saying that this is an incredibly unique and the most authentic, so there's two things that what he could mean by that. One, he could mean that if he meant that the print, like it's on the best quality paper, and it's got the best colored fonts and the best colored, and I've done some extra, I don't know, editing notes and things like this, and that's what he's slightly taking an angle at and saying this is the best, most authentic. I don't know, that doesn't really make sense, but that could be the one angle. The other angle is that he has access to a totally unique copy that nobody has, which makes no sense because all the copies are based on the Sultaniya. Right? So I mean, this copy I've got here of Sahih Bukhari is based on the Sultaniya. They're all based on the Sultaniya. There's nothing, they're all based on you have Dar Bulaq, then after Dar Bulaq, you had the Taba'a Amiriya, you had Dar al-Fikr, then published it. This is how the Sultaniya became widespread. So, yes, they may have some discrepancies, but they're all based on the Sultaniya. Right, so the other thing that he could possibly mean by this is that this is just like a marketing angle, like as in if I had, let's say I was selling paracetamol, and all paracetamol, the maximum strength you can find is 500 milligram. That's all paracetamol. Let's just say each one tablet can only have 500 milligram. So whether that's Panadol or whatever, all these kind of different companies. So I launched my brand, let's say Malm paracetamol, and I tell you that this tablet is the most strongest quantity of paracetamol that you can find on the market. Now that is kind of true because there's nothing that's over 500. So mine is 500 milligram as well, but so is Panadol, and so is all these other, let's say, I don't know, Anodin and all these other kind of paracetamol are also 500, but none are actually stronger. So in a sense, I'm kind of telling the truth in saying that this is the strongest, but I'm kind of, it's a bit misleading because I'm giving the impression that others are weaker, but I'm going to say, well, I never said they're weaker. I just said this is the strongest quantity. So, अच्छा. तो ये game चल रही है. Because how is that the strongest? Obviously, every single paracetamol you buy is going to be the same quantity. I mean, some may be weaker, but this is commonly found. So that's my point with Sahih Bukhari. Every single copy is based on the Sultaniya, pretty much, by and large. I mean, for the most part of Sahih Bukhari being found today. So, ये most authentic का क्या चक्कर है? Right, so ये मसला है यार, ये मसला है. So this is what I'm kind of struggling with. So I did try to find out, and this is what it seems to be. I mean, if I'm wrong, then please do enlighten me. हम भी देखें यार. I want to see that most authentic copy as well. ये एक मुद्दत से ढूंढ रहे हैं. It's been a lifetime I'm searching for my long lost love, the book of February. Right, so February ji, Meri Jan, right? So it's been such a lifetime, right? एक मुद्दत से अपने आप को ढूंढ रहे हैं हम. That's the, so if he does, so if anybody does have any other insights, please share them with me. But as far as I can see, it doesn't make any sense saying, the only thing I can see that is either he's wrong, as in which, either he means by editing and the quality of the paper, which doesn't add up, or he's somehow got hold of something ever so unique, which is impossible, right? Because they are all the Sultaniya, or it's simply a marketing kind of, maybe he didn't mean to say it like that, and then the students around him misled and they miscreated the posters, and that husna dhan. It could be, and people might say, people are saying I've killed the whole thing. नहीं यार, ये तो हम प्यार कर रहे हैं, प्यार कर, प्यार मोहब्बत हो रही है. This is my love, No. The problem was the claim is to do with Bukhari, and obviously I've got a discussion on it. I'm involved in Bukhari. Involved? Samjha karo. It's a complicated love affair I've got going on with Sahih Bukhari. Relationship status, it's complicated. So obviously, if somebody else gets involved, I have to then also, samjha karo. Janam samjha karo. This is, this one not personal, this one private. So that's not a dig at Sheikh Yaqoubi. Hopefully he didn't know that this was going on. Hopefully he didn't know this was just some of his students that wrongly kind of advertised it. There should always be plausible deniability. So my solicitor told me. But I didn't mean to speak bad. I know that a lot of murids really respect Sheikh Yaqoubi, and I respect him. But it's just that, on this show, there's no loyalty. Nobody's safe on this show. This show, this one lethal. This one, no. This one not nice. This people, I gotta wrap it up with that. It's been awesome. Right, take very good care of yourselves. Any issues, any messages, reach out to me, man. I may be watch this space, I may be having a discussion with Haris Sultan this coming weekend. So it may not happen. If it does, do watch Facebook and things like that. Take very good care of yourselves. It's gone really late. So shukran for hanging in there, listening to this nonsense that I go on about. Bak raha hoon junoon mein kya kuch. Kuch na samjhe khuda kare koi. All this nonsense that I utter in my state of insanity. May God not let anybody fathom any of it. Allah. Have a very good night. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.